Hi everybody, this is the second part of my review of my Morphy Richards Homebake bread maker. It's not going to be comprehensive, I probably won't have all the bases covered, but hopefully it just covers the basics. And what I'd say is that all of these bread makers seem to be now a fairly standard piece of kit. Very easy to use, they've made it so it can be as easy as possible. But as you saw in the last video, there's an element of skill, an element of technique involved. I actually think it's good to have that, but I'll come on to that in a bit. This is the instruction manual and it includes the recipes, and what I've done is I have adapted the recipes and I've scribbled on it and I've written and I've crossed lines out. And what I've crossed out, first of all, is this strange inclusion of skimmed milk powder. You do not need to add skimmed milk powder to bread. I'm not sure what it does to the bread, but I never have put the skimmed milk powder in. I just think it's a bizarre thing to include in the recipes. I also think these recipes have far too much sugar in. You do not need 2 or 2.5 tablespoons of sugar in a loaf of bread. In the old recipe book that I kept from our old bread maker, which stopped working, it suggested 1 teaspoon, but I actually made some French bread, used the recipe that was on the packet, and that didn't have any sugar at all. So you don't actually have to add sugar because the flour is complex carbohydrates, and that is a form of sugar, and it's plenty enough for the yeast to do its thing. So you really only need to have the basic ingredients, the 5 basic ingredients of bread, which is flour, water, oil, or I usually use oil. You can use butter. It's probably best to melt the butter first. If you do that, you get slightly different results. A little bit of salt. Again, you only need, I mean, these recipes are fine actually. They say a teaspoon of salt, that kind of amount. You only need that sort of amount. And then you don't really need to add sugar at all. So actually there's 4 basic ingredients. And in fact, I discovered recently that in France they actually have a purity law about bread that says you're not allowed to add anything else. Wouldn't that be good if we had that here? The thing they have over us, I think, is the quality of flour. They know that the quality of flour is really what makes a good loaf. Anyway, so you've been staring at that for quite long enough, and to come back to this point about there being an element of skill or craft to everything, and I got that idea from this book, The Case for Working with Your Hands by Matthew Crawford. It was published in 2009, which is when I got it, and I read it, and at that point I did a job where, as indeed I do now, I find that I have days off when I'm on my own. And I used to resent doing all those jobs, you know, fixing things basically that are broken and doing all the odd jobs around house and garden. And I used to resent that and think, oh, I don't want to spend my day off doing that, I want to do fun things. What this book showed me is that those things are fun things. Crawford, what he does, he looks a little bit at the history. I'm not going to open it up, there's nothing to see except words. He looks at the history of how it is that people have created gadgets to make things easier for us, but how the problem is that that can make us stupid. What these gadgets show us is that actually there's always going to be an element of technique or skill. So I'm going to get out this loaf of bread that you've all been waiting for. There it is, and tip it out in here. And sometimes, as on this occasion, the blade, so I don't know if you can see that, well, it's rubbish. There you go, the blade has remained inside the pan, which is very convenient, but Morphy Richards very wisely include a little tool which is quite nice, which you can use if the blade is embedded there. You can actually prise it out. You always get that hole. It's not a bad loaf really. Quite pleased with that. And if you are somebody who perhaps balks a little at doing practical jobs, or maybe more likely going to be somebody who is frustrated with the fact that everything these days is so much made for our convenience that it's almost impossible to fix anything, or to or indeed to adapt things for your own use. Then this is the book for you. The Case for Working with Your Hands, or Why Office Work is Bad for Us and Fixing Things Feels Good, by Matthew Crawford. Thanks for watching.